that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for expanding on the value that synthetics, or the role that synthetics can play in, animal alternatives, endangered species alternatives. I think one reason that consumers and even some perfumers are wary or even afraid of the synthetics, there's a lot of reasons. Green marketing is definitely one of them. But could you touch on whether most synthetic fragrance materials are derived from petrochemicals? So that is kind of one of the main things that we hear from people that are wary of them, or they're just not sure where these materials, molecules, or blends are coming from. Would you be able to elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Sure. This is true, and we talked about the myth, but to dispel the myth, this is true that consumers are afraid of chemistry today. As simple as that. Mm-hmm. In a way, I can tell you they shouldn't, but you will not trust me only on what I said. It's about putting the facts on the table and the education also to be really convincing and showing, demonstrating, what can be the added value of synthetic. I think the debate goes beyond natural or synthetic, which is often opposed, which has been an opposition, from, I would say, the past. The right way to frame it is for a constructive future is really to think about the protection of the planet, the respect of the people broadly on the planet, while at the same time creating this delightful sensorial experiences that will enhance my confidence, makes me happy, these little moments, and also feel more well-being and health. And it is about being less dependent from petrochemicals, which means renewable ingredient. And I think the new key word is really renewability. It's about naturally derived ingredients, which are hybrid, coming from nature, but respecting nature and leveraging science and chemistry. Probably green chemistry in that case is a good idea. It's the good chemistry, and to measure the impact truly and walk the talk on that. This is truly, I think, the way forward for perfumery.
So before we discuss green chemistry, we were curious in terms of generally in the fragrance industry, if people have been able to find alternative starting materials other than petroleum. How far are we on that track in terms of moving to these renewables?
But, there is a lot on renewable to continue to use the science on the biomass. There is also a lot of innovation in the space of white biotechnology, which is on top of renewable. So renewable is one axis, but then white biotechnology is also a huge and very, very promising path for the future, because it is really starting from a very accessible natural biomass. So not something that can be extinguished, something which we can get access. And at the same time, it's leveraging a process of fermentation, a little bit like when you create beer in a brewery. And in the end, the objective is to be able to have a natural, a renewable, and a sustainable ingredient. I can give you two examples because that's really, really sometimes difficult because new and not very well known from consumers. We at Firmenich have invested a lot in this, which is much more complex than what I mean it. I think there are lots of scientists and a lot of PhDs are working on it, and I'm very humbled. But we launched our first white biotechnology fragrance ingredient that was the first one in industry back in 2013, which is quite recent actually. It was called Clearwood. Clearwood is starting from sugarcane, which is quite accessible and also affordable and renewable. And you put the fermentation and white biotech process on it. And out of this, you get Clearwood that is a very light, transparent, not earthy patchouli note. It is highly sustainable, 100% natural, 100% renewable, highly biodegradable, and it really comes to add new olfactive possibilities for perfumer that they are using on top of natural patchouli in some instances, in order to really complement the two of them and have a very different and more transparent and lighter profile. So it is combining natural patchouli and also having an alternative that is providing a different olfactive possibilities in a very, very sustainable way. It is absolutely breakthrough, and it would not have been invented without that. And the most recent one is called Dreamwood, and we just launched it a month ago. And I know that you have looked at it, and the story is, I think, the same or even better. If you think about sandalwood, which is today almost extinguished because we have not protected it enough. The initial one coming from India, in order to continue this filière of sandalwood, we are today having extensively in our palette sandalwood from Australia. It took a bit like 20 years to grow the trees and then to be able to extract. But then the industry is working a lot on sandalwood and not on the Indian. But I'm sure that as perfumers, the frustration not to be having also the iconic creamy note of Indian sandalwood is there. And thanks to Dreamwood, same processes, sugarcane. Today, last month, we have our perfumers being able to use Dreamwood at very sustainable way, 100% natural, much more affordable. And this is for them, one of their dreams becoming true again. And this is protecting the planet, and this is providing the delights.
That's amazing. That's kind of right. That's applying fragrance technology to protect this endangered species. It's amazing. And, while we figure out how to protect this species and keep it in existence so that people can enjoy it indefinitely into the future, it's really wonderful to have a renewable, sustainable alternative or complementary material to it. It's pretty great, I think.
And here, one of the important thing to mention is when we talk to consumer is how you make it accessible for them to understand what it is. Because if you talk about white biotech, I'm almost sure that we would be scaring them again. And while on the contrary, they should be very reassured. And we need to talk about it with the right accessible vocabulary and language. And this is something where we have a lot of also work to do overall as an industry, I think all together in passing, these messages.
Could you explain for the audience who might not be familiar with this terminology, what is the difference between green chemistry and white biotech?
Actually, they are very different. I think white biotechnology, as we just said, in summary, is a groundbreaking innovation process that creates ingredients considering natural biomass, accessible natural biomass to start with, and applying this fermentation process. Okay. While green chemistry is an approach to chemistry designed to really maximize the efficiency and minimize the hazardous effect on both human health and the environment. So it's a way to run and to do chemistry. It's a concept that is quite recent because it started in the 90s, and I think it's even late 90s, and it is a concept that has 12 principles. I think the point today is not to get into the 12 principles, but it is just to say that it is really framed into very, very serious criteria on how to do it. And it touches on the solvent, on the number of catalysis steps, on the renewability of the biomass, on many, many different things that have to be done in combination. So like 12 different ways to do things in order to be done within the green chemistry principles. Green chemistry is the way Firmenich does chemistry. And we are always optimizing either the current ingredients that we have to make them even more efficient, to use less water, to use less energy, to have less catalysis steps, in order to really make them always more sustainable. This is what we do on a key ingredient like edione. So it was invented a long time ago, but still, we are still working on it to really make sure that our chemists are always finding and pushing the needle on making these safer, more efficient, using less energy. We use it also for new ingredients discovery and reducing the waste. And all of this is one of the KPI that we have in ECOS and Compass, because this is guiding what is the really efficient and safe chemistry. But back to your point, if you ask a consumer about green chemistry, you'll have zero. You go on internet and you fish for people knowing about green chemistry, you won't find much. And this is also one of the things that in the future, I hope people will start to understand that chemistry can be good and green.
One thing that I never looked into, as a perfumer, but I'm looking into more, and you mentioned on it with clearwood. I didn't know that clearwood is biodegradable, which is really cool to know. And so what I think about a lot, I'd love for you to touch on, are what kind of practices are in place to minimize environmental pollution from the disposable synthetics, because not everything is biodegradable. So what do you do if it's not?
Biodegradability is one of the axes that is a priority for us, to design ingredients to be that biodegradable from the design phase, because it will be very difficult to change. And actually, we had decided, it's at that time Patrick Firmenich, who was our CEO, in 2010, put the challenge on our scientists, our chemists, to develop new ingredients and accept them to get into the palette only if they were able to comply with being biodegradable. Wow. So for 10 years now, everything which is developed and put into the palette of Firmenich, and we have many ingredients coming each year, can only make it if they are biodegradable, which is a vision and an ambition. Wow. It's not regulated, so it is just about making ourselves and equipping our perfumers with the best biodegradable palette. So that's one part of the equation. The other part is ensuring that in our manufacturing processes, we are paying the maximum attention on the waste to landfill. The water we are using is fully recycled all the time. And this is part of our corporate goals that we measure to be, on that, having the most ambitious goals and delivering on them. We are going to close our 2020 chapter, with our goals. And usually, we are always surpassing the ambition that we have set to ourselves. we are about to set new goals for 2030. So this is really about measuring and improving step by step, always this. And we also take into consideration that the water is not is a scarce resource overall, but in some places it is more scarce than others. So you will not treat, in a way, water in the US in the same way you will treat it in Mexico or in Brazil or in India. So we are really being, super concise on having the right approach at the right place for every single thing we do.
This ties into that a little bit. So do you believe these technological advancements are the real path to sustainability, working on like white and green chemistry, or do you think sustainable agriculture will also play a role?
Absolutely, yes. Ultimately, we know that nature, technology, and people are all linked. And we need to make sure that everything's, converge to in our transformation to bring the best for the nature, the people, and leveraging innovation and technology. On when it comes to the natural part of our business and our ingredients, we have put so much emphasis on developing the most ethical and performing supply chain in naturals that will guarantee the livelihood of all the people that are working on this chain. And it is a lot of people, and it is a very, very difficult actually and complex task and mission to do. And at the same time, establishing that we can get the best qualities for the fragrances in the future. We don't want to have, we want to make sure that we will have the variety of the natural quality that will make, the people at source live in decent conditions and be educated, having, the right, health and hygiene conditions, and at the same time, ensuring that we have the quality that we want to have for the perfumes that will be liked by the consumers. This is about not only one ingredient. As you know, there are so many ingredients getting into the composition of a fragrance. So it's not only about, having, responsibly sourced rose or responsibly sourced pink pepper or, responsible patchouli. It's about having all of them. So it's really a huge effort, which is, vertically touching a lot of people and actions to be taken wisely.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you kind of what your vision of the future was, and if you see tools like the EcoScent Compass becoming industry standard, or at least other companies or independent perfumers developing their own versions of them. How would, really, given your experience with Firmenich and your own personal experience, what would you like to see really change in the global fragrance market and in the industry? And maybe also how can the COSP help with that? Or, how can we participate in that, or at least encourage people to really pay attention to what's going on in the new developments in chemistry and technology and sustainable agriculture that are occurring, that are really exciting and extremely necessary?
I'm very optimistic about the future, and the fact that in our conscious consumer extensive work, we have repeatedly heard or read in our quantitative studies that consumers want fragrances. At some point, I was even afraid that, somebody is going to tell me, I want things free of. So maybe they will want a word free of fragrances. And that's not true. I think if I quote the number, 86% of the people are really believing that fragrance brings pleasure, and they don't want to live without it. And this is true throughout the world. So consumers will be wanting to have this sensorial pleasure, and today they don't want sustainability at the expense of a nice, pleasurable fragrance. It is on top of it, and they want to feel in touch with their humanity, making sure that others also are benefiting from that. If I treat myself, or I'm treating my mother with a very nice, refined and quite expensive fragrance for her birthday, she wants to make sure that the people that have been working on this, in the end, can really live.
Okay, so at the beginning of the interview, you were talking about Firmenich's leadership in sustainability in the industry. And we love that you're creating these models, and it's awesome that you're sharing it with us as consumers of your product. And we would love to see this with other companies as well, so that we can actually consume responsibly. And we're wondering if you view this model that you've created as a form of thought leadership where you can really steer the industry towards greater sustainability.
At Firmenich, we are a large company, and this puts this big responsibility on us, and we really want to lead the pack. At the same time, I think we have to be very humble that we cannot do it all, and we want to do it with others. And with others mean that we really want to embark and align with the entire industry in order to increase the level of ambition, to accelerate the change. And we are up to that. We are openly sharing how we have created design Ecocent Compass with our clients. They are also a big traction in the whole equation. So it will require, I think, collaboration. We have been raised in a world of competition. We have to learn on co-creation and co-collaboration for a better good, which doesn't mean that we will not compete, but we really need to better compete and better collaborate in order to make that happen, which really means that we want to engage with the entire industry through IFRA and with our other fragrance houses, with the responsibility that we have as large fragrance houses. And we also want to make sure that we work with the right partners on every single aspect beyond the industry, our clients, people working on innovation, also universities, startups, indie brands, entrepreneurs, because we need the brain and the ideas and the energy of everyone really to make it happen. That's really our philosophy, our mindset. It requires a lot of coordination, a lot of effort and energy, but this is truly the way forward.
Thank you so much for doing this interview today. It was really insightful and incredible to speak with you. We really look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you very much for having me. It was, a great conversation. We are all together to make things happen and sustainability improve. Happy to be coming back in the near future.